So like I said last time, it's believed that when Zelda played the Ocarina to send Link back to his past in Ocarina of Time, she pretty much fracked up Hyrule's history, splitting the timeline into two dimensions. This was essentially confirmed by the game designers in a later installment, which we'll eventually get to. The point is, we now have one timeline where Link came back from the Sacred Realm as an adult to defeat Ganon, and one where he got to live out his childhood because he wasn't trapped in the Sacred Realm. So with each game now, I'll be bringing up my own theories on where each one fits chronologically. For now, let's go back to the games we've covered. I think we have to put all of the games before Ocarina together, since the designers couldn't have been taking separate times into account when they made them. So, we have Link to the Past, Link's Awakening, and the original Legend of Zelda, followed by The Adventure of Link in that order. It's my guess that when Link went back to the past, he and Zelda, instead of trying to get the Triforce themselves, somehow convinced the king that Ganon was no good, and so the sages trapped Ganon in the Sacred Realm before he could get out to conquer Hyrule with the Triforce. That sets up the story for Link to the Past and all that followed. So these games essentially take place in the child timeline, which we do know for certain also includes the next game on our list. The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, which was released in 2000, takes place sometime after Link's return to his childhood, as he is on a journey to find Navi, who left at the end of Ocarina. Strange, given that Miyamoto actually stated that Navi was in love with Link. Yeah, I forgot to add Navi on the list of ladies with the hots for this kid. The game starts with Link riding Epona into the woods, even though he only rode Epona as an adult in the last game. Anyway, you run into this witch doctor wannabe and his two fairies, and he steals your horse and ocarina, and then turns you into a Deku scrub. This transient tells you he can restore you if you help him get back the mask that the Skull Kid stole. This takes you to the clock town of Termina, where your goal is to reach the top of the clock tower within 3 days, while this mysterious moon is getting closer and— oh no! That's not nightmare-inducing at all! You have one of the Skull Kid's fairies, Tattle, as your guide, even though she was clearly helping the kid in the beginning, and her apologies sound like a last gasp to keep you from swatting her. Why do people find her less annoying than Navi again? You can't get into the clock tower until midnight on the third day to confront the Skull Kid and get the Ocarina of Time back. It's here that you suddenly remember the Song of Time that Zelda taught you, transform into a living pipe organ, and go back to the start of the first day when you play the song. The peddler then teaches you a song that restores you and leaves you with a Deku mask. But he isn't too thrilled that you didn't get his mask, going into some deranged psycho mode and claiming something really bad will happen if you don't get Majora's Mask back. Yeah, the Skull Kid and the mask are drawing the moon closer, and it will crush the entire city in 3 days. That's bad. So in order to stop the Skull Kid, you have to travel to the 4 regions outside the town and the temples at the end, releasing the spirits of the 4 giants that can help you. The number of tasks you have to complete may seem less than the other games, but it's complicated by the fact that you only have 3 days' time. The game basically functions as a time loop where you do as much as you can in the 3 days and then play the Song of Time to save the game and go back to the first day. You do keep your treasures that you find, like the bow, but you lose all of your ammo each time. The game revolves around you collecting a ton of different masks, including ones that transform you into other creatures like the Deku, Goron, and Giant masks. And whenever you put one on, it apparently puts you through agonizing pain. Really, with the evil moon looking down on you, the creepy peddler, and now this, the game really has some disturbing images. I don't want to be culturally insensitive or anything, but sometimes I think the Japanese have issues. There's also a lot of stuff just taken from Ocarina of Time, like the Gorons and the twin Rova sisters. It just comes off as lazy to me, since they've made new creatures in subsequent games before, and now they just throw in things from the last one in a game that's not directly connected to Hyrule. Of course, I can't talk about this game without bringing up one thing in particular. And that is what many consider to be the worst video game character ever made. An abomination known as Tingle. So this guy is basically the black sheep of his family because he flies around in green spandex wishing he was a fairy. Again, must hold back on the gay jokes. And he sells you maps, where in the previous games you had either the maps from the beginning or found them in dungeons. Great. He's only going to get more annoying as the series goes on, and yes, he'll appear again in future games because the Japanese love him somehow. So you find out the Skull Kid lost his friends because he was an a-hole before befriending the fairies and stealing the mask. You free the giants while completing other side quests like uniting lost lovers, and then you confront the Skull Kid one more time on the third night where you summon the giants and they hold up the moon. The mask separates from the kid and goes into the moon where you follow him into it to find a field with one tree surrounded by the children of the corn. You have to give these kids your masks and then play hide and seek with them, I'm not kidding, before you can finally confront the mask in another really creepy final battle. So you beat the mask and the moon disintegrates, no doubt causing massive tidal disasters across the planet in the process. It turns out the giants were the Skull Kid's friends, and he's also the same kid you met back in Ocarina of Time. And that's it! He never apologizes for anything he did. Yeah, the mask was controlling him the whole time, but every indication was he was a jackass from the start, and that's probably why the mask could easily control him. This punk at least deserved to be slapped across the face once! Look, I may be at a disadvantage because this is the first game of the series that I never really played much, but I just feel like they took several steps back with this one after the epicness of Ocarina of Time. The whole time loop scenario was a nice try to integrate something new, but it gets overshadowed with a lot of really disturbing imagery, and the climax and falling action didn't make a lot of sense to me. At least because it's not directly connected to Hyrule, Ganon, or the Triforce, it is a game you can kind of dismiss as part of the greater Zelda storyline, even though we definitely know when it takes place. Which is more than I can say for some of the next games. Brace yourselves, because the questions of how, where, and when begin next time.